Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Leslie Bailey. I'm the Director of Community Experience here with Events Industry Council, and welcome to today's webinar, Recalibrating Resources to Face Challenges While Honoring Climate Commitments. We're so happy to have you today, and we'd like to go through a few housekeeping items just before we get started. A special thank you to all of our corporate and our association members, and of course, our strategic partners that make all of the research advocacy that we do possible. We couldn't do without you. Thank you so much for your support. And just a few technical announcements first. So for anybody who would like to use closed captioning, make sure you're using it at the bottom of your screen to enable the captions and also enable the translations to select your preferred caption language. Post any of your questions into the QA. We're happy to take those at the end. And any interactions you'd like to have, please start those in the chat so we can decipher which ones we need to answer at the end. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared after today's event. And you can earn 1 CE towards your CMP and your CMP-HC certification, and it will be posted within 1 week of today's webinar. With that, I'd like to hand it off to today's moderator, Gwendol Castellon, to introduce himself and our panelists and the topic we'll be discussing today. Over to you, Gwendol.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Gwendol Castellan. I'm the Manager of Sustainable Destination Development at Destination Vancouver, and I serve this year as the 2026 Chair of the Events Industry Council Sustainability and Social Impact Committee. We are excited to kick off 2026 with this topic that is universally understood and top of mind as a goal for many organizations across the global business events industry. Please help me in welcoming today's panelists, Guy Bigwood, CEO and Chief Changemaker at the Global Destination Sustainability Movement, Nancy Prouda, Senior Director of ESG Engagement with Hilton, and Ben Wiglius, Head of Sustainability with Informa. Unfortunately, we had planned to have Yashi Dadic, the Director of Energy and Sustainability with the Javits Center, but she is unable to join us today. And before I get into the rest of the introduction, I thought I'd just give each of our panelists a chance to just introduce themselves briefly and maybe tell us something that's not on the bio we put in the event announcement registration. And I'll start with Ben.
Well, you called me out there going first. Yeah, so Gwendol, it's very good to see everybody online. It's a huge number of people have turned up already from all over the world, including Vietnam, which I thought was impressive. I've worked in sustainability for the last 25 years with a focus on making sure it's always business relevant. And I guess the bit that's not in the bio is I lead a team of 30 sustainability professionals in the world's largest events organizer. So I hope I'll be useful to people on the call today.
Oh, fantastic. And now I'll go to Nancy.
Oh, hello. Thank you again, all of you, for joining. My name is Nancy Proud, and I've been with Hilton for almost 20 years, but in the hospitality business, almost double that. But what I'd like to say is that I was always in the sales side of the business and really believed that we had opportunity not just to talk about terms and conditions and concessions, but how we can work with our customers to align with whether it's sustainability or community impact initiatives to drive more purpose in the meetings and events we're hosting at Hilton. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. And finally, Guy.
Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm in Berlin today. I've been working in sustainability, I think, for 25 years, 26 years, I think, this year. Bit like Ben, I used to work as a sustainability VP for MCI, one of the world's largest event management groups. And since 2019, I set up the GDSM, Global Destination Sustainability Movement. And I think today we work with about 151 destinations all around the world and hundreds of associations as well, helping them to implement their sustainability work. So lots of views, lots of experience, lots of mistakes on that journey, and I'm happy to be here and share some of those viewpoints.
Oh, thank you, Guy. Getting so excited here to get into this conversation. So let me just kind of set the stage. So 2025 has brought significant headwinds to those working to advance environmental, social, and governance outcomes across sectors. And many organizations are taking stock of the gap between their ambitions and their progress. We're a decade from the 2015 Paris Agreement, which set a roadmap of cutting emissions by 50% by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050. And it is increasingly clear that commitments alone are not enough. At the same time, scrutiny is rising. New consumer protection initiatives on green claims in regions like Europe and Canada are making it harder for organizations to overstate their achievements, and economic pressures are prompting some governments to roll back or revise earlier policies. Yet, as past cycles have shown, such as after the 2008-2009 financial crisis, momentum can slow without being broken. There are also signs of steady, if quiet, progress. Recent analysis of thousands of corporate climate disclosures suggests that many organizations are still raising their climate ambitions rather than scaling it back. And sector data shows a growing share of companies measuring and managing their emissions. This points to a more nuanced picture, not a simple story, advance or retreat, but one of organizations adjusting their course while continuing to move forward. That idea of kind of recalibrating is at the heart of today's session, recalibrating resources to face challenges while honoring climate, social equity, diversity, and inclusion commitments, as well as baking governance that keeps us on track. With this esteemed panel, we will explore different perspectives of how organizations are evolving their ESG and sustainability strategies in response to shifting expectations. What industry resources, measurement tools, and guidance are proving most relevant, and how these shifts are influencing the decisions and interactions of event professionals, suppliers, and their stakeholder communities. I'm looking forward to discussing how our panel is managing the headwinds that may slow us down as we adjust. However, just like a sailboat that can't sail straight upwind, we can change tacks and zigzag our way towards our intended direction. So let's dive in with this panel and find out how many reefs they have put in their sails to keep moving forward and not capsizing. So let me get to the first question. And this is really open to all of you, but I'm going to start with Guy. What are you most excited about in 2026? How is your organization planning to evolve its ESG and sustainability strategy in 2026? And what are the ways those plans are designed to go beyond what has been achieved in 2025?
Good question. I think if you'd asked me this question in December, I was really despondent. Last year was a hard year. The winds were windy. And I felt a lot of pushback, a lot of people cutting budgets, cancelling projects. I was very worried. But in January, I'm blown away at how the energy is changing. I've had so many new projects confirmed, clients really driving forward with new initiatives, and there's an energy, there's a determination I haven't seen for years, and it's really inspiring. This week, I was at the European Commission, and they do a big tourism day where all the ministers of tourism there. The EU, for the first time in its history, has a commissioner on sustainable tourism, which obviously includes the events industry within that. And there's a new strategy in Europe coming out, and sustainability is all the way across that. And so that's driving funding, it's driving projects, it's driving priorities. And so that is really exciting. So from a European point of view, that's good because that will change priorities and make people sit up, especially because funding is attached to it. But what we've seen is in sustainability, what happens in Europe is often and normally echoed and resonates around the world. And we've seen legislation coming out. We've got new legislation, we'll come on to that later, and those type of things are echoed, copied, and rolled out around the world. So I'm really excited. I'm in a month I've changed my energy, and I'm just delighted to be here.
Well, that's fantastic, and so nice to hear that. Really receiving those strong signals from Europe of staying the course and moving forward.
I just add to that. I mean, I mentioned Europe. That Asia was already sending out those messages. So Asia was already ahead. I work a lot in Asia and the Middle East. Those guys are really driving forward, and I'm sure Ben's seen something like that. So I think there's some really exciting messages from around the world coming.
Okay, well, we're going to dive into that deeper, but in the meantime, I'm really looking forward to hearing from Nancy and from your perspective.
Sure.
How's
No, I appreciate guys' enthusiasm, and I hope it's contagious around the world. We also are feeling excited this year by the fact that within this current environment, many of the customers we're speaking to are still committed to finding ways to make positive impact for the planet and for people. And the way we speak about it may be a little bit different, but our intentions remain strong. And we also see a role really in helping our customers navigate through this, their narratives through this time to help also with our goal of helping them, each of our customers on this phone, help achieve their goals through the relationships and collaborations we can bring. At Hilton, we are very committed. Our founder talked about the light and warmth of hospitality as a force for good. And our commitment is to make a positive impact through a program we have at Hilton called Travel with Purpose, which is made possible, again, by the passion of people within our hotels, within the communities and the rest. And this is really at the heart of the collaborations we want to have together to foster initiatives that enable us to drive progress towards our mutual, guiding principles and goals. And so at Hilton, we've made some good stride. To answer your part of the question as it relates to this year, we've made good stride, and we're proud. We've already achieved our waste goal, but really working towards ensuring that we really address strategic procurement and sourcing, and that within Hilton supply chain, we are armed to create, really sustainable stays that our guests can feel good about.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love hearing about the human element that's one of your strengths. I think of you as a venue, but also that it's your whole team that is part of that, and that's something that's really you're getting some really good feedback on. Ben,
Thank you.
you're in the nexus of event delivery. How has the last year been for you, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm conscious that Guy and Nancy and myself are going to sound like we really drunk the Kool-Aid, but all this kind of anti-ESG stuff, I think is quite a lot of hot air. That the press loves to report on the story of someone pulling back from DE&I or pulling back from ESG, but the data doesn't support that that's a widespread problem. You said actually the data says more companies are increasing their climate commitments. Globally, there is more money flowing into ESG investment funds than ever before. Yes, it's down in the US and up everywhere else, but that may be a rebranding more than anything else. And those companies that maybe are perceived to be pulling back from DE&I or sustainability may be simply green hushing, where they're staying quiet about those programs while still getting on with it. Tenders that can't include ESG still include a cultural fit component, which I guarantee from everyone I'm talking to still considers whether they share the same value set as a company. And here in Informa, 2025 was the end of our 6-year sustainability program. We'll be talking about the results in the next few months. And 26 is exciting because we're now setting that next 5-year goal to 2030. And what we're seeing is moving away from fluffy language to more specificity, but the ambition's still there, the ambition's still growing, because why would we not want to invest in renewable power when it's the cheapest form of power on the planet? Why would we not want to make our events more inclusive for a generation that expects us to align with their values, and their values are sustainable? Why would we not want to incorporate new products that help our customers solve their biggest challenges when their biggest challenges are almost always something aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals? So I'm really excited. I think we're just going to have to be the best we possibly can be at explaining why these perceptibly moral initiatives are actually relevant for business investors as well. And I think we've all got very good at that in the last decade.
And Ben, you mentioned something very interesting, which is the sustainability, the UN sustainability, this UN Sustainable Development Goals, because those I think are a single source of truth that all of us around the world can associate with. And whether it's an environmental commitment or a hunger commitment, or a social impact component, those are really important. And just it's all the Climate Week in New York. There was a lot of conversation. We're not sunsetting our goals. We're just going to talk about them a little differently.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like what you both said there, and I think it's that in some ways the pushback is good for us. It's making us step up and improve our game. We haven't been communicating well enough. We haven't been integrating it well enough always into business and business language. And we need to get better at that. And many of us have been doing this for a long time, but it's still not mainstreamed enough. And so now we have to mainstream, make sure it's in every trade show, every event, every hotel, every restaurant or whatever. And so that's a bigger challenge. And, that means approaches have to change, language has to change, business calculations, measurement. We have to get better and adjust all of that. And I think that's our next move, as you're asking for, Gwendol, is how do we go to that next level now, which is really about integration and mainstream across all business and all areas, and not just patching things and doing a few things really well.
Oh, this is great. I think you're actually you're all jumping into the next question I had, which is about the challenges we continue to face in setting goals and I think really where are the unexpected opportunities? So Guy, you spoke to, kind of the, it's the stone doesn't break the sword, it can help sharpen it. But as we're looking up to setting these goals in the near term, is there anything that's keeping you up? That are some really gritty challenges. We've spoken a lot of some positive signals. And maybe I'll start with Nancy. Are there things that where are the edges at the moment as you're making those plans or starting to deliver them for 2026? Oh, you're muted, Nancy.
I am so sorry. I think that, it is a universal challenge that we're all facing as this ever-changing regulatory landscape evolves. And it's a full-time job to keep, up with all the changes in each market around the world and to ensure we're providing the data that meets those requirements to our customers. And most of us work in matrix organizations in which we don't have control over all of the decisions that other teams make, and that's certainly true within the Hilton organization, as we're rooted in a franchise model. And so it means that we have to spend a lot of time inspiring people, not mandating action, really inspiring. And do we focusing on the value of what sustainability brings to our partners, particularly franchise owners and our customers, of course. And in our business, utilities are a significant portion of Hilton's operating costs. And so therefore we see sustainability as a means to efficiencies. And we're finding efficiencies to increase really are increasing financial performance, which of course means that then hotel owners will be able to, save a little money and reinvest in renovations and all the rest. And so that's why we're really working towards, and I invite all of our customers to think within their own organizations, what kind of low cost turnkey opportunities can we provide? So for at Hilton, we're looking turnkey opportunities to provide within our communities and the rest, and looking to increase energy efficiencies and renewable energy sources, as mentioned, and also partnering with our owners on projects that realize greater impact, and finding local utility incentives, that help, the bottom line in future investments, and also, for the hotels, and helping support our properties as they're exploring alternative energy sources. And again, these collaborations show that sustainability can improve financial performance, which again, back to improve, keeping the hotels at the quality and level people are looking for. So highlighting the return on investments from initial projects encourages the stakeholders to continue to reinvest those savings in sustainable initiatives, boosting both the environmental benefits and the cost savings as well. And when I say cost savings, I mean for more to then be passed on as the hotels are in need additional renovations and the rest.
So both like bottom line ROI and a holistic ROI.
Yes.
Yeah, and Ben, going from that perspective as a supplier to yours with Informa, where you're in the delivery planning, that must sound good to have partners like Hilton.
I mean, Hilton's amazing on what Hilton does on the sort of sustainability programs in the hotels, and there are several Hilton properties I go to regularly where their sustainability program is really visible and really kind of making a tangible difference. They're far beyond just, we'll put your towel on the rail and we won't wash it. Like there is a kind of end-to-end visitor experience of that. And I'd say there's three things we're facing right now. One of them is they directly relate to that as an organizer, almost our entire environmental and social footprint is through our supply chain partners, whether it's the hotels people stay in, the venues we work with, the general service contractors, the carpet manufacturers, the stand builders. And so a bit like engaging with Nancy's franchises, we have to engage with venues and suppliers around the world. And we're trying to do that with Cara and with Stick. Second thing is like everybody in sustainability, there's 100 things we could be doing at any given time. And we often spend our lives working on the things that are about transformation and fixing problems. And then we run out of time to tell people what we've done. So we don't get a chance to celebrate that. And I think the third area and the bit that I'm particularly aware of is we all kind of know now that sustainability will pay for itself. But maybe the internal rate of return, the rate of payback, is slower than for some more immediate products. But we also can see strong correlations between things like Net Promoter Score and the sustainable performance of our events. You can see if one is high, the other's high. But being able to prove empirically that a more sustainable event leads to a higher Net Promoter Score is very challenging. We can see it, and you can make a leap of faith on it, but we're not 100% there that if you crank this up by 20%, you'll crank this up by 20% as well. We know, I mean, Nancy, I'm sure guests enjoy staying at sustainable hotels more. They feel better about it. But can we prove that if we do this in-room recycling program, it leads to more NPS? It's difficult. You kind of know it, but how much? And therefore, it's more difficult to demonstrate the business case than it would be with a standard, more established metric. Like if we add another 20 rooms, what does that do to us?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And thank you for your nice comments about Hilton. I will say that I also am a big fan of Infor and all the work that you all are doing. I sat on a panel with one of your colleagues on food waste, which is so important right now. And that you all are doing so much to ensure that as you host your meetings and events, that food waste is top of mind. So congratulations on those efforts and the many others.
Thank you.
I think you just hit on something. Just a few seconds before joining this call, I was on another webinar for the GDS movement where we were presenting the results of some research from Dr. Xavier Font, and he analysed 90,000 booking.com hotels for sustainability. And it was just what you said, Ben. It's really hard to measure success and satisfaction of sustainability initiatives. The closest thing he could find was that the hotels with the highest satisfaction of a hotel were the ones with the highest satisfaction of sustainability. But it was really difficult to analyze that, and that's our problem. And so there's a perception by some CEOs that this is not priority because they don't have the data that shows it's so important right now. And so there is some deprioritization of sustainability initiatives. And many of our American friends up here will have seen that in their markets. And that worries me, obviously. I don't believe it's accurate in some ways, but we don't have the data to back it up and challenge them. And so that's what keeps me up at night. We're not business focused enough to challenge the deprioritization, and we've got to get much sharper than that, because we know, as Ben said, empirically, we know in our gut feeling it's part of quality, it's part of standards, it's part of what the next generation will need. But we've got to get better at measuring it, backing up, and communicating it with words other than sustainability. We need to come up and start communicating with words that make a difference.
All right, Guy, you're going right into the next question. I'm gonna start with you, maybe to speak to what are some pathways to answer that? Like what are the tools or frameworks, or even, maybe it's some basic strategies that you think are going to be useful for measuring that sustainability progress to really maintain momentum, when goals are both becoming more ambitious. We've got some big challenges ahead of us, but we also have some economic headwinds and a changing regulatory environment depending on where we're in the world. And so I mean, obviously, one of them is the index, but I'd love for you to kind of speak to, because you're connected to so many others as well. And maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we touched on it. We need to back up anything we do with data. Data to help us make better decisions, data to help us communicate, data to get better at what we're doing. So those systems, what you use, whether it's something like Trace for measuring the impacts of the events, or whether it's something we did the GDS index for measuring the sustainability via destination, or the system Nancy uses in Hilton, those systems become more important. Those systems have to comply with the new regulation coming out from Europe or from Canada or elsewhere in the world. So I think one is getting better at use of that, is mainstreaming the use of those tools. So it's just not the sustainability bod, it's not the Gwendol, the Ben, the Nancy, and the Guy who are using it. It's really out and across the organization and spread out, and how we get better at that. So I think those are the two things. And then it's about how we train our teams, and especially our comms colleagues, our marketeers, to talk about this properly. I think one of the key things now is you ban the word sustainability from your lexicon and start trying to use other ways. This sustainability means 17 different goal areas and hundreds of different things. So start communicating about the hundreds of different things and use beautiful data and beautiful language to do that, and not just keep coming back. And I'm the biggest person who's guilty of doing this wrong. So, I know I've got to learn more better at this. And we have this test when we work with a destination. We always have a game. It's like, come on, let's talk about it. But you're not allowed to use the S word. And so that's some things I'm sure Ben can pick up and Nancy can pick up on that.
Yeah, I love that. Get more specific is something I really resonates for me. Ben, when we're speaking of data and measurement, that ability to work across the event delivery spectrum, can you speak to maybe how what works for you when you're receiving data from suppliers, and what are you giving to other people? How, like, that interchange, that communication, so that everyone is working together on measurement.
I can, but I'm fighting the temptation to be very contrary here. I think a lot of sustainability, especially 25 years ago, comes from engineering disciplines. And a lot of the regulation where consultants are lining up like the big four to make lots of money from sustainability assurance and putting real scare tactics onto leadership around getting the data right. It's bringing a lot of accountants on board. And I've got nothing against accountants. I worked with them for many years. But I think sometimes measurement in sustainability is our safe space. And we spend a lot of time measuring. And I've seen a lot of companies spend a lot of time measuring before they start to take action. And my personal view is the world can't wait for that. But also the business that moves first will have the best advantage. And I know there's a lot of people on the line who come from small and big organizations. And what I hear a lot is, I'm a small organization. I can't afford a $10,000 software platform. I can't afford $20,000 of consulting time to do my carbon footprint benchmark. And a lot of consultants my customers are asking me for this. I'm on record, I think, on several times as saying, I don't mind MacGyvering it and using duct tape to hold it all together while I get on with bits and pieces. And even in Informa, we make some compromises on our data. This is a listed business that's got the regulations all around the world, and certain bits of data are fine. They do the job, but I don't really need to know an accurate water footprint to know that water is not a big priority for me. I spent quite a while, 5 or 6 years ago, with a team measuring my carbon footprint. We've open sourced that. It's the carbon footprint of a generic B2B trade show. And it says really clearly, you get venue energy moved over to renewable power, you'll cut your footprint a lot. You work with sustainable hotels, you'll cut your footprint. You move from disposable to reusable stands, and you will massively cut logistics and the waste and the embodied carbon. If you did those three things, maybe throw in some food as well to work on food waste if you're a big caterer, especially if you're a conference. We know that food is a massive deal on conferences. That will make a bigger environmental difference than all the measurement in the world. I do agree with you, Guy, that we've got to have some measurement to prove it, because otherwise we won't be able to get the money again to do it again. But I fear sometimes that a lot of the folks who come to this from smaller organizations worry about us big organizations who have the resource to do all this measurement and have to, and they feel that's where they need to start. Whereas actually, I think there's some very proven technologies, and there are some consultants out there who are incredibly good at knowing where to start on action. And the global sustainability destination movement, you've got great case studies of where to start because you've done it. Like you do these programs. So
And
I think we need a balance.
I like that. And there's something I think you started and you were very much involved with, and it's really a way I think we have to think is the Better Stands initiative you started up, right? To make a great trade show, you can do 100 things, but Better Stands, you're focusing on how many is it? Is it 10 different things? And those are 10 material things. And I think if we're going to mainstream that, we need initiatives such as Better Stands. So the GDS index, we've got, 80 criteria, but we've come out with GDS Lite now, which is focused on 20 things, because we've got to get all the second and third tier cities around the world who are not in action. So that type of approach, with the hotels, is Hotel Sustainability Basics, brought out by the Sustainable Hospitality and Alliance and WTTC. Again, not everyone can do the 300 points of a green, Kia and Earth check, but they all can start by doing 10 and then 20 and then 30. So we have to kind of not be so particular in trying to do everything perfect. We should be focusing on the material things that gets the ball going, as Ben was saying.
Sort of walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Nancy, I'd love to hear from you on this question. I mean, we've got a little bit of there's Guy and Ben seem to be converging on a little bit of consensus, but also some two different perspectives here. And from your perspective as with Hilton, I'd love to hear where you're at, like on action and measurement and prioritization a little bit as well.
Thank you. We know that data is key to many of our customers' strategies as it relates to sustainability. And so, at Hilton, we have this platform, our sustainability management platform called Lightstay, that really each hotel, it's a brand standard, must have to measure their energy, water, and waste data. And this data informs our progress towards our goals, but also helps each hotel individually make progress year over year with some of the tools that are associated to help them. This also, what does this mean to help our customers? It means that we're able to provide some great reporting. And I think in the meeting space, we have the greatest opportunity. Ben and Guy touched on a little bit too about, how do we engage the travelers in the journey? And on the transient side, it you can give them some good tips and tricks. But on the meeting side, you can, at Hilton, and whether you are at a Hilton and you use our meeting impact calculator, or you're looking at just a destination and using the content they have about the footprint of a meeting. And at Hilton, we are able to put into the system the number of sleeping rooms, meeting space, food and beverage, and all the rest. And it'll show you what the carbon footprint is and the energy, water, and waste. But to my colleagues' points earlier, it's not just a good idea to look at the data. You have to say, now, what are we going to do to improve that footprint? And have conversations about, we have a checklist, that goes through our meet with purpose pillars of together, run the calculator, look at this checklist, identify low waste choices to reduce the footprint as we nourish, again, locally sourced, sustainable, low carbon food options with focus on reduction of waste. And then to impact, leave that community better because you were there, and what kind of social impact activation could be included. And so right now, guests have really been, group meeting planners and the rest are really enthused about this, but they're saying, okay, great, now show us the impact of some of these choices we're making. We know we're reducing, but can you show us how much? Back to the data. So we are currently piloting where we'll be able to, in Q2, show our customers if they have no plastic water bottles, which around the world many of our hotels don't have plastic water bottles, but in the Americas we know we still see them in the meeting experience. Using digital key, a great opportunity. Many chains have digital key. At Hilton, we saved 105 tons of plastic, diverted 105 tons of plastic from the landfill last year. Whether, and also if there's some, incorporating food donation or food diversion, whether it goes to people, pigs, or planet, we tease. But again, that's another opportunity to be, for you all to be pushing the hotels to say, what we want to do everything we can to eliminate the waste first, but then when we have waste, how are we ensuring it doesn't go to the landfill? And then the last one is more low carbon food options, more plant-based protein in the menus. And so with those 4 metrics, we'll be able to show the improvement. And so back to data, like to be able for folks to be able to demonstrate back to their leaders, because we made these choices with the hotel, we've been able to reduce the footprint in this way. And this is our focus here. There's a lot of things we can do on the transient side, again, to provide more sustainable stays, but we're lucky and enthused on the meeting side to really be able to show the impact and engage with the customers.
Thank you, Nancy. And it sounds like you're really, jumping to the next question in the sense that we're thinking about talking about how we're working together and how do you navigate the partnerships. And you spoke to, you have some tools that you're providing to your clients and supporting them so that they can build their understanding when you're at one of your hotels. Is there anything you want to add to that idea, like on the partnership side, before I ask Ben and Guy?
Well, I think it's really about collaboration. It's really about aligning and understanding what your customers' guiding principles and values are, and how do we collaborate? Because meetings are a great way to showcase your brand, and also that you walk the walk. And when you go to we have a lot of meetings at home. When we go to our meetings and our employees are there and their team members, and they hear Kristen said it, talk about all these wonderful things we want to do towards our 2030 goals, and you walk in and there are plastic water bottles all over the place, and there's opulence of food, and the giveaways in the rooms are these big, large things. You have to walk the walk. And so I think that those collaborations are very helpful. And guess what? Many employees go to work for organizations that are purpose driven, and they want to see, again, that walking the walk.
Thank you. And maybe I'll jump to Ben next. And in this section, we also were kind of looking at exploring, like, sometimes maybe the commitments are maybe a little bit different than the ones that your organization have and the client. And how do you navigate that and find commonalities, accommodate each other?
Guy, you kindly mentioned the Better Stands program, which is something we started creating for about 5 years ago and has now been launched to the industry for others to be able to use. That's definitely a case of duct taping some of the data together, because it's more about driving the change. But we have an incredible diversity. There's 40 countries in the program, more than 400 events. And so the customers within those events want very different things from the exhibition stands they're building. I know there's a lot of North American colleagues on the line, and it's hard to convey the sheer staggering difference between the way North American events are built, which is clean, fast, efficient, safe, to the way that some events are built in other countries, which involves literally power tools on the show floor, cutting wood, dust so thick you can't see the other side of the show floor, armies of cleaning staff who have to clean down that dust before the show can open. And customers, they want their triple story wooden custom booth, or they want a booth that's cost effective, or they want a booth that's just, they've all got different things. What I'm hearing more of now is the big exhibitors, they're saying sustainability is expected. It's a given. If you don't build this in a sustainable way and run your show in a sustainable way, you've got a problem. We can't put our brand at risk by doing that. But I think we've just got to work with a huge variety of venues, of stand contractors, of hotels, of cities, and that's requiring us to flex our style a lot. We're really having to engage in different ways and focus on different business cases for each of those.
Okay, and I guess is ever a moment where you hit a line in the sand, or and how do you navigate that? Maybe Ben, I'll give you a chance to just touch on that, and then I'll jump to Guy on kind of staying the course as well.
Gwendol, every single week there is a line in the sand somewhere. If not every day. But there are also more people who are rubbing out that line and moving forward. There are more people who are saying, actually, why would I not do this? It's really obvious. But it just requires that change of mindset, the right communication. And so all of us, we all know that you've got to be resilient in any role, but any role that involves change, any role that involves trying to persuade people where there are little leaps of faith that there is a correlation between this action and this outcome, that a more sustainable event is a more experiential event. That's the leap of faith at times, that a sustainable booth actually protects you from rising labor costs and costs of wood. Okay, that's tricky. That waste that you paid to get recycled actually got recycled, that food that you just supplied really is organic. So I think you have to just keep going, and if there are lines in the sand, you go around them, you step over them, or you decide you're going in a different direction for a while until they figure out that it's a better case. And we're just seeing more and more exhibitors in particular, and more stand contractors going, actually, the future is sustainable, but they don't use the word, to your point, Guy. They use, the future is reusable, the future is modular, the future is cost effective, the future is beautiful, the future is intelligent, but it's the same goal.
Guy, I
think 2 points you're making me thinking. I think one, a lot of this stuff is going to get easier. The measurement challenge we're talking about, the comms, it's going to get easier with technology. We've already seen how AI and some of those solutions are really going to make measurement, getting data, pulling data easier. I can get a menu today, I can put it into ChatGPT, I can ask it to do me a carbon footprint on that menu and compare carbon footprints of two menus, right? Straight off. I don't need any fancy tool, I can do that with ChatGPT. So is that good enough to be certified and verified? Probably not, but it's good enough for me to plan a meeting. And so, is it good enough to use and good enough to try? So I think there's those kind of things which will make it easier. Secondly, in kind of answer to Rachel's kind of message question there is, you have to approach things based on where you are. Yeah, and where you are in your type of business you got, the type of event you got, and you're not going to do a full CSRD report if you're a two-man business, but if you're a Maritz or an Informer, you're going to have to step up and do that work. So, and I think we kind of lost it at times, and we do too much for the type of organization we are. So we have to work it out. We need the kind of better stands type of approach, the GDS light approach, or the GDS full, depending on the kind of destination you are, or the kind of stand builder you are, or the kind of hotel you are. We need to have those various lines. And then lastly, I think we just need to stop sometimes and be a bit kinder to ourselves. The work that we do, all of us and all the people on this call, is at times very hard. And sometimes we just need to give ourselves some space to go on holiday, to disconnect and refuel and regenerate ourselves, and then come back and fight this again. It's difficult, and it's okay that it doesn't always work. And it's okay that sometimes you don't hit all your barriers and your targets. And I think that's I see that myself last year. It was a hard year, but now after a good break, coming back and being creative and getting that, there's different ways around those problems and the issues that we're facing. There's ways around it. And that's what motivates me at the moment, is kind of picking people up and say, come on, let's work around this. Let's realize that this is hard work, but there's ways that we can get there together and working together to get around those problems.
Yeah, I love that. And I didn't go on vacation, but I just came back from the Impact Sustainable Travel and Tourism Conference. And There's nothing that is, better to fill your cup, reconnect with people who are also doing the work across different elements of the sector. So that idea of finding that way to sustain ourselves in this work is just as important. And before we get to the Q&A, I've got one last question, and maybe this is one we can do a little bit popcorn style, but is like thinking about the ROI of environmental, social, and governance initiatives. Are there things that you can think of that are like real tangible commercial benefits that are maybe expected or unexpected, where it's improved your brand value, or that have really resonated with your clients and your customers? And how's that, or even with your teams? And Nancy, I'd love to start with you if you've got some things that are really resonating at the moment within your organization.
Well, and just to answer it with a little twist, what I really want to encourage everyone on this call is that many times we'll come to a conversation as it relates to planning more sustainable meetings, and we'll do a little homework before, and we may go XYZ company, and obviously using AI is very easy. Copilot, you can say, what are the sustainability goals of XYZ and the rest, and you get these, and then you put them on a slide when you begin our presentations, and we say, we're so thrilled to see how committed you are to food waste reduction, reducing your footprint and supporting youth in underrepresented communities, right? And then you say to the customer, does this resonate with you as areas we could bring to life in meetings and events? And across the board, sometimes they say, yeah, those are great. I hear our CEO talk about it, but nobody's ever told me about how that resonates down to our meeting and event policies. Or sometimes they say, you know what? Or they say, yes, two of those, one of those, let's switch this around. But we say to them, this is an opportunity for you as the planners to go back and demonstrate to your leadership that you're committed to helping achieve the overall goals for your organization. So I really encourage, I can't emphasize enough the importance of making sure that everyone on your team is really fully versed on what your organization's guiding principles and goals are, and how that might resonate down into the meeting and event policy, so that you're strategically taking steps that are, again, providing consistent experience and demonstrating to your meeting attendees that you walk the walk. And this collaboration with vendors, all vendors, it doesn't have to be just your hotel space. But I know for your hotel partners, they're really looking to create offerings that reflect and showcase your commitments and your organization's values. And this alignment will not only strengthen the partnerships, but also, that reputational brand you all have. So a little bit different twist to your question, but I want to make sure we bring home that point of the importance, because folks are ready to align and support.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Ben, any last thoughts on that ROI question? And
most of us on the panel are old enough to remember the days when people talked about the ROI of sustainability as energy efficiency, reduction of waste, using materials, and that's still valid. But Nancy, you talked about experience. Obviously that's a whole thing in a hotel. What's that guest experience like from the point of booking to the point of stepping away and thinking about the memories of that trip? And as a trade show organizer, it's the same thing. How do you keep making your events cool and exciting and high quality for everyone, but particularly that younger generation that expects more experience? And again, we're old enough to remember the days when sustainability used to be, you can't do that, you can't fly, you can't use plastic, you can't use this. And I don't think we use that language anymore at all. And I think about, in my own life, farm to fork food is more exciting and sexy than going down to the standard chain restaurant. So I'll pay more for that. But that's usually sustainable, seasonal, and supporting local businesses. So it's sustainable. The event that serves you your coffee in a china cup rather than a plastic cup or a paper cup feels like a higher quality event, and the ROI there is way more than the cost of that cup, because you're going to price premium in it. A carbon neutral event is going to be perceived as an event that's better thought through in the same way that a fair trade or an organic product is. So I think so many things we build into an event for sustainability increase the brand perception, the net promoter score, the premium product, and that allows us to increase the likelihood to return. It increases the relationship with our customers in terms of they feel more aligned with the values of the brand. One of the reasons I stay in the Hiltons I do is because I feel aligned with the values of the people who run those hotels. And I enjoy the breakfast bowl because I know it's fresh and locally sourced. So it's like I'm being paid, Nancy, for this. But it's the same with events. Like if I've had so many people and so many of our big customers say to us, if we come to an event and it doesn't align with our company brands, if the people on stage are all white middle-aged men, if there's no recycling, if I can't eat a healthy lunch and I have to eat something greasy where I fall asleep in the afternoon, if I can't exercise in the morning, I don't want to come back. So we're suddenly making people hostages rather than advocates because there's like, wow, this place is really cool. They really care about how I'm doing and align with what I care about. So I think in a nutshell, if we get this right, our products will be better. And can I show you that doing one of these things gives us 1% extra profit? No. But I can certainly show you that the sustainable events are the events that people talk about more.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Better quality, better management, better experience. Those are definitely things that that resonate. Guy, before we go to the Q&A, is there anything you want to jump in on here?
I think it's a mindset shift we have, and it's very connected, I think, to what Ben's been talking about. This mindset shift of thinking regeneratively, right? The days of just doing less bad are over. Right? We've got to recycle a bit more and present, and produce a bit more energy. But that's not going to change the game. That's not going to give us our market edge. It's not going to lower emissions on a global level. We've got to come up with bigger and better ways of really changing the system and changing the way we work. And that requires a regenerative, additive, not telling people they can't do stuff, rethinking ways and creating new models and systems. And that mindset is inspirational. It's exciting. It gets people fired up. And, that's the work I do. And it's just brilliant. I'm just back from Poland. We're working for a destination that had really, really basic sustainability practices, but we've been trying to get them to think about how they redo that system. Yesterday we had a workshop, 60 people working on this and trying breaking the rules, and God, everyone was fired up, and that's what makes the difference, and that's what's going to get people to come up and do stuff in a different way that gives us the edge. And it's brilliant. I think that's the way we've got to go.
I love that. Mindsets, the worldviews is part of the change as well. And where is a better place to test out new mindsets and to engage with them than through events? That's kind of that's the stage where change happens. I love that, Guy. That's really fantastic. So we've got 6 minutes left. And so Leslie's been carefully monitoring the questions that have been coming through. And so I'm going to pass it to you to just let us know what's floating to the surface and that we can address in the little time we have left.
Yeah, so thank you all for the very insightful conversation and just giving us that guidance and that hope too, right? Of that we're on the right track and we're going to continue to be there. So we do have a few minutes left for questions. So I want to start with one that came in actually from our registration. So people were able to submit questions before today. And it was, how can leaders strategically recalibrate resources without treating climate commitments as optional? So Gwendol, I kind of pass that to you first to see who would like to take the baton first and pass it along for that question.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. Anybody want to jump in on that one? Maybe
I didn't hear the question. Could you say it again, please?
Sure. How can leaders strategically recalibrate resources without treating climate commitments as optional?
Really centering.
What do you think? Gwendol, you've been asking all the questions. How about you answer a question? How would you approach that?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Really, in my context, I work within a destination. So for us, it's connecting it to our community. It's really making sure that in our decision making and our relationship with meetings, events that come to Vancouver, that our community is part of the conversation. And when we do that, we see that climate is a priority. It's part of our municipal plans. We have a renewable city action plan. We have a very specific community action around climate, and so it's kind of finding that way to integrate the two. And for us, that becomes a big part of our North Star. Is like, this is who we are, and if you're planning an event here, it's part of the soup. It's part of how you get things done here, and it can be a differentiator as well. We want to make sure people realize that right at the outset.
I think you touched on some good points there. I think relevance to the individual. It's like in Nancy in your hotels. You do well because you make it relevant to the check-in girl who's working there, or to the guy, the bellboy, right? Sustainability is relevant to everyone. So you got to make it, what does it mean and why is it important for them? How do you integrate it in just the work they do, right? And then it becomes core business. And that's the magic. Once you get good at that and the integration is it's just part of business, then it makes a difference. Then it's got to work.
Thank you, Guy.
Okay.
Leslie.
Yep. So we have about 2 minutes left. So I have two future questions for you guys. The first is a little more in the forefront right now, and then we're going to look out into the future. So one of the questions we got in is, what is one change organizations can make in the next 12 months to materially reduce the human effort required for sustainability data collection? So this is around data collection.
I think just to be clear about what it is, the data they want to be collecting, what they're got, where the goal is, and just to begin one step at a time, as others have said. You don't have to do the whole enchilada at once, just piece by piece. Because everybody's on a different part of the journey, right? So you want to.
Yeah. Pick the important ones. I like that. And maybe we'll jump onto the long-term question because we don't have that much time.
Yep. Okay, so adaptions aside, what does the future, let's say 5 to 10 years from now, hold for sustainability? So what do you all, in your personal opinions, think 5 to 10 years from now, what does sustainability look like?
All right, Ben, you look ready to answer.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to joke, it depends what day you get me on, because it depends if it's very bleak or very optimistic. I think what it holds is that a lot of the boring stuff is going to become automated and fall into the background. There is so much knowledge and information. Now, that guy, you gave the great example of the carbon footprint of menus. It's good enough to make some decisions. It's good enough to know that it's not the steak, it's the chicken. It's not this fish, it's this fish. And I think it means we'll be able to concentrate a lot more on the change management, the hearts and minds pieces, and the programs that align more with what our customers need in terms of products. Because the rest of it will become just BAU. We are building buildings that just take care of sustainability. So how do we make sure it's the users who are doing the right thing?
And I totally agree with that. I think it's also, I think the environmental part of our work is getting easier. It's the social stuff that's much more of the challenge, the harder things. And if we can simplify our work on the environmental side and spend more time and thinking of people, that's going to give us some great benefits, which is going to catalyze the change and get us to go faster.
Fantastic. Okay, we're coming up to our last minute here. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, Ben and Nancy. It was such a wonderful conversation. This has been really, we could have done this for another couple hours. I think there's so much to cover. Nancy, we had one slide, I believe, to thank and celebrate everyone who'd newly certified for the Sustainable Events Standard. And just a quick note that the Sustainable Events Standard is being up. We're planning to do a whole process of updating the standard in 2026. So this is going to be a big priority for the Sustainability and Social Impact Advisory Committee, but the Events Industry Council as a whole. Is there anything you'd like to add, Nancy?
Yes, so thank you to everybody for joining again. We just do encourage you to check out our Sustainable Event Professional Certificate. That is a Sustainable Events course module. It is online. It has a lot of education in it that's very useful. Also, as Gwendolyn mentioned, our Sustainable Event Standards, those are available online as well, and getting involved in that. You can also see what different venues and organizations have certified to certain levels. So it's very helpful. And also adapting your own strategies and seeing where you can fit those into those sustainable event standards. So we thank everybody for joining again. Gwendolyn, thank you so much for leading us through. Thank you to Nancy, Guy, and Ben, and we will see you on our next webinar. Thank you, everybody.